Welcome to Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang, your intel on the Philippine markets and the economy. In the headlines, the Budget Department is expecting lower budget proposals from government agencies for 2027. As elevated risk aversion levels, U.S. stocks, can Philippine equities decouple and buck the downturn? We speak with Ras Mercado of China Bank Securities. And in my special report, here at the Granton Primary School in London, fellow kababayan Edison David helped shape policy and standards in UK education. He's recently been named a member of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire by King Charles III for his work in education and school leadership.
Because I think this is one thing that everyone can agree. Reading is the key to all learning because you unlock knowledge through reading.
Government agencies are expected to submit lower funding proposals for 2027 as the Budget Department tightens spending rules. Acting Budget Secretary Rolando Toledo said agency requests may come in below last year's 11 trillion peso plan following stricter guidelines issued in the 2027 budget call. He said the Budget Department is reinforcing safeguards to protect public funds, particularly amid corruption concerns tied to past infrastructure projects. Under the new rules, agencies must secure approvals from regional development councils and ensure proposals are aligned with national priorities. Analysts said a sharp cut in the budget proposals signal more disciplined spending but risk underfunding of key programs and misalignment with economic priorities. Jonathan Ravelas of Reyes Lacandong and Company said the tighter could help ease fiscal pressure, but warned agencies must avoid starving essential programs while trimming excess spending. Economics professor Leonardo Lanzona cautioned that stricter access to funds may discourage agencies from pursuing worthwhile projects. He warned the approach risks become austerity without a clear goal, potentially delaying growth-supporting programs. Meanwhile, PIDS Senior Research Fellow John Paulo Rivera said agencies may turn overly cautious, leaving key infrastructure and social services underfunded unless reforms are institutionalized. Bank lending in the Philippines is expected to remain in double-digit territory this year, even as the flood control scandal weighs on business and consumer confidence. S&P Global Ratings said bank loan growth is still seen at 11 to 13% this year, unchanged from its earlier forecasts. S&P Director Nikita Anand says growth will be driven mainly by consumer lending as demand continues to expand from a relatively low base. The latest data from the Bangko Sentral show total bank lending rose 10.3% year-on-year to nearly 14 trillion pesos as of November. Lower interest rates are also expected to support borrowing. However, United Overseas Bank said the central bank may pause at its February 19 meeting before possibly delivering one final 25 basis point cut in the second quarter. The BSP earlier said its easing cycle is nearing an end, but Governor Eli Remolona has left the door open to further cuts if growth remains weak. The Monetary Board will have its first policy review for 2026 on February 19th. The central bank has enough firepower to manage the peso's volatility as foreign reserves hit a two-year high. Preliminary figures from the Bangko Sentral show that gross international reserves by end of January stood at $112.5 billion, the highest since September 2024. Year-on-year, the GIRs rose by nearly 9%, while month-on-month, they went up by 1.5%. Jonathan Ravelas of Reyes Lacandong and Company attributes the uptick to stronger dollar inflows from exports, BPOs, and remittances. Higher valuations of the BSP's foreign investments and gold holdings also drove the increase. In a statement, the BSP says the reserves are enough to cover 4.1 times the country's short-term external debt based on residual maturity and 7.5 months' worth of imports of goods and payments of services. Ravela says with GIRs comfortably sitting above traditional metrics, they can help the peso from overshooting even when trading turns choppy. The Bangko Sentral has been resistant, though, to defend the peso amid its recent slump. President Marcos already said he doesn't want to see the local unit sliding to 60 pesos to the dollar. The Philippine Stock Exchange Index hovers among two-week highs and the highest in more than 6 months since PBBM revealed anomalous flood control projects in his State of the Nation address. So where to next for the index this year? Our next guest predicts a possible breakout off of the 6,500 level. Well, with us now for more is Ras Mercado, Research Director at China Bank Securities. Good to have you back on, Ras. Welcome to the program.
Hi, good morning, Cathy. Thanks for having me.
So what are the key drivers of your forecast?
Okay, so what has been interesting over the past couple of weeks, or at least more evidently over the past week, is we've actually been holding above 6.4 or 6.350, 6.4. That's coming despite the weakness you're seeing in U.S. markets, right? So typically, when there is weakness in U.S. markets, we follow suit. Certainly, there are concerns over, of course, the sustainability of the rally from earlier this year, especially given that we continue to have that backdrop of soft economic growth. So that's interesting to see. We've been seeing foreign fund inflows as well, and hopefully that's what leads us higher. If we see better participation from foreign funds, I think they're looking at more value stocks across the global markets, and we certainly fit that bill.
Big caveat there, the foreign fund flows that we're seeing. How sustainable is that, and what do you think is going to drive them forward?
Okay, so I think one thing in the US, you do have those concerns over AI, right, and tech. So I think that's entering a healthy consolidation or correction phase after running up for so long, right? So heading into this year, I think the context that's important is we are one of the cheapest in terms of PE in the Southeast Asian region, right? So certainly, if you're a fund heading off of last year, coming off of I have a lot of exposure in an expensive market. Maybe I'll shift some of that away into a cheaper market, and the Philippines being one of that. I think we were close to 10 times at the end of last year. Maybe that's where we can move some of this of our profit, right? So I think that's what's been making foreign funds come here. We are still seeing them come in trickles. I think north of 100, 200 million a day over the past 1-2 weeks. And I think the outlook for growth or GDP to pick up this year certainly helps underpin those flows.
Exactly to your point. I mean, growth isn't really there. Growth is slowing, but then, money is going to look for the cheaper markets at this point. There is this sort of decoupling that's going on. I mean, the sustained recovery on the PSCI is happening as the Nasdaq last Thursday suffered its worst 3-day rout since April's meltdown. So how do you think that sell-off in the U.S. is not spooking investors here as much or at all?
Yeah, so interesting you brought it up. If you look at historical data, when U.S. markets steeply sell off, we typically follow suit. Although it's not the same when the U.S. is heading into new highs, we don't typically follow that, right? So I think what's key for U.S. markets is that even if the ongoing sell-off is there, it remains orderly. It's not as steep, and I think that's conducive to investor sentiment remaining supportive of rotation into other markets, right? But I think specific to what's been happening over the past few weeks, I think again we're cheap, and if you're looking at it from a number standpoint, we did see growth kind of slow in the second half of last year, right? So just looking at if we ramp up infrastructure spending this year, from a number standpoint, that sets you up for a pretty low base from last year. So you're going to see higher growth in the second half of this year, right? So I think just looking at that and the sustainability of that trajectory into 2027 is certainly something that investors should be optimistic about.
There's still a lot of ifs there, Raz, but is there a potential to decouple from the U.S. markets in terms of the equity market moves here?
Hopefully, in the near term, we do. there's certainly room for us to move higher and for them to correct. So I guess we could be seeing that, especially if the fund flows continue to flow into our market. So here's to hoping that continues through.
Well, investors here still saddled by the government catch-up plans, taking a couple of quarters before that recovery is felt. What impact do you think that might have on risk appetites as the waiting continues before that catch-up plan kicks in?
Well, I think certainly markets are forward-looking, right? So I think what we're seeing now in terms of price action is already, in terms of mindset, there, right? That we will be accelerating government spending this year. But I think investors will stay reactive to how disbursements come along over the next couple of months, how the pace at which we're getting there. So I think certainly room to move up just because the expectation is there. But then investors will stay reactive to upcoming progress reports that will come out.
Well, if we were to describe where you stand now in the equities as an asset class, what would that be? Would it be cautiously optimistic, prudent?
I think we've been cautiously optimistic for a while. Our key messaging right now is we're actually priced for caution, and we're now open to recovery. I think right now we've kind of put down our expectations in terms of earnings growth, in terms of valuations, and that in itself already speaks that investors here might have already been coming off of multi-year. There's some sort of I wouldn't say anxiety. I think it's more of a series of years where you expected the PSA to move up by this much, but then only to fall short of those expectations, right? So I think that given that expectations are now subdued, there is room for us to kind of surprise to the upside. And I think that equities will remain a favorable asset class. Again, if you're expecting GDP growth of north of 5%, inflation of around 3%, so earnings growth should at least be in the high single digits, right? So if you're comparing dividend yields as well, some of those dividend yields are more attractive compared to the risk-free rate at this point, or the benchmark rate. So I guess that should help underpin interest in equities over the long term. And I guess certainly right now, if you're looking for yields, if you buy at cheap levels, then earnings growth continues. Those dividends should, thinking about it, just come up for so long as the payout ratio stays the same, right? So
final point,
I think it's
a lot are hoping for a rate cut on the 19th. Do you think he's going to pull the trigger at the Bangko Sentral?
I think there is space for the room for one more cut next week. Markets expect the same, and hopefully there's more room for undercut. But I think what markets are thinking now is yes, there's space for one more cut this next week.
Got that, and it's coming real soon. Thank you so much, Raz, for opening the market week for us. Raz Mercado of China Bank Securities. And you're watching Money Talks. Coming up, a stunning election win for Japan's Iron Lady. And catch my conversation with a Filipino educator who's received Britain's highest honors. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back to Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang, checking in on the markets. The Dow on Friday surged above the 50,000 mark for the first time in history. The Dow rose by over 1,200 points, or nearly 2.5%. The Nasdaq jumped by nearly 2.2%, and the S&P 500 climbed by nearly 2%. The Dow's been on an upswing since it plunged below 6,600 at the height of the 2008 financial crisis. Friday's historic milestone comes despite the AI bubble fears and a slump in software shares, as investors wager on real economy stocks amid accelerating U.S. growth. Benchmark 10-year Treasury yields were little changed, settling at 4.205%, and gold prices rose to $4,951 per ounce. U.S. futures point to slight gains when the markets open later tonight Manila time. The Nasdaq rises by 1/3%, S&P 500 climbs by 0.2%, and the Dow advances by 0.1%. Asian markets skyrocketing Monday, led by Japan's Nikkei 225. The bourse is up by over 5%, 5.3% in fact, following a decisive victory for Prime Minister Sanay Takahashi and her Liberal Democratic Party in yesterday's snap elections. South Korea's Kospi jumps by over 4%, and Australia's ASX 200 climbs by over 1.5%. Since ascending to the premiership in October, Japan's Iron Lady has pushed domestic shares to record highs while causing a massive sell-off in government bonds and the yen. Takahashi's party now has absolute majority of the House to push her economic agenda, which include aggressive growth programs and increased military spending. And a look at our own markets on this first trading day of the week. The PSEI opens higher by nearly 0.2%, 6,402. The stock market ended Friday's session in the green, up by 0.1%. Investors remain cautious this week. Stay wait for fresh catalysts that can support a stronger rally. Markets are also turning their attention to fourth quarter and full year 2025 corporate results. As for the Philippine peso, it opens today a tad stronger, 58.50 to the dollar. The peso strengthened by 10.5 centavos on Friday to close at 58.585 to the dollar. The local unit may move downward this week as traders monitor Washington's negotiations with Tehran. And the 10-year government bond yields have gone little changed at 5.96%. A Filipino educator from Tarlac is making global waves in education, now recognized by King Charles III for his contributions to school leadership in the United Kingdom. But even as he receives one of Britain's highest honors, he is also helping to improve the quality of education back home here in the Philippines. Here's my exclusive conversation with kababayan Edison David, MBE, in London.
It was overwhelming. It was overwhelming. I mean, it's one of the ultimate accolades, not especially for a Filipino, but even for, the British citizens. It's an ultimate accolade to be named as an MBE. So I was really overwhelmed with emotions.
Well, you started in the Philippines, in Tarlac, in the government school there. So you do have that view of the local educational system, along with what you've learned here in the UK.
Indeed, yes.
Yes. What would you say are the key differences?
I think the key differences, there is first and foremost, it's funding. So, for example, this is a 640 pupil primary school, and my budget is around £4 million a year. So that translates to about 1,008,332 million pounds, 32 million pesos a year, or more. I think I don't know my mathematics, but it's quite a lot. But in terms of the pupils, they're the same. Children are universal, so they are, they're learners. I think one of the things that I find here as well is there's so much clarity around curriculum. So schools are not second guessing what they're going to teach. Teachers are not second guessing what they're going to teach on a daily basis. The curriculum is well spelt out for them, so it's quite detailed.
Talk to us about that clarity and what you've learned. I know that you've done up some changes in the schools that you've led here in central London.
Yeah.
What can we apply in the Philippines in the immediate time?
Yeah, I know. I've been reading the Educom, we've been discussing that as well. So it's quite a heartbreaking report. But, if you put it in perspective, when they say 91% of the pupils in the Philippines are struggling, just imagine for a second, if you have 10 children who get up every morning, they go to school, they stay there from 7 o'clock to 5 o'clock, and then after 4 years, of those 10 children, only 9 of them are reading. So that's really heartbreaking. But that is one thing that England was also facing not very long time ago. So in the mid-2000s, there were relative weakness in the teaching of reading here as well. But what the government did here was that it has taken that as an absolute emergency. So what they did is they commissioned the report, and we have spelt out in the curriculum the manner by which we're going to teach reading. So we looked at, evidence that is found on research. So we considered a simple view of reading by Goff and Tunmer. And what we've done is that we have spelled it out for the schools. This is the way you're going to teach reading. So it's going to be first by phonics and then language understanding all at the same time. So what that has done is that from 37%, and the first year that phonics screening check was introduced, 58% of the pupils were fluent readers, and immediately after that it rose into the 70s. Last year, 80% of all England pupils at the age of 6 are fluent readers.
And that's something that can be replicated in the Philippines.
Easily
English is not the first language.
Easily transferable.
I know that you've spoken with Secretary Angara.
I have,
in your
yes.
last visit.
Yeah.
Did you mention this to him? And what is the way forward then with the DepEd now receiving the biggest chunk of the budget in 2026? What is your immediate proposal?
Definitely. I've spoken to the good secretary. He came across as really genuine and really authentic, and he was really interested in the systems and the processes that the Philippines can learn from England. I have already put together a proposal to the department. It's a solid proposal, and it's going to be a bespoke phonics program that can be implemented across all the schools in the Philippines in terms of the teaching of phonics. It's as a way of teaching reading. It's now in the discussion stages, and I hope that they take that with the sense of urgency that I feel for the country, because I know it's transferable. You can just imagine seeing the Filipino pupils all reading fluently at least at the age of 8, and that will be a huge contrast from the position that the country found itself in as per the EDUCOM findings.
And why would reading be the first attack and way forward? How does that improve our proficiencies? I mean, you've seen the EDCOM 2 report. There's been the UNICEF report that is really showing that we do have a problem, an education crisis to resolve.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think this is one thing that everyone can agree. Reading is the key to all learning, because you unlock knowledge through reading. So I think there's no pretending that we can even start learning the other subjects of the curriculum if we are not reading. Because knowledge is predicated on existing knowledge, and you can only get knowledge from reading. So it's very important that reading, and the EDUCOM report actually places a high importance on reading, but not reading per se, but actually early reading. Those idea of strong foundations, the foundational knowledge, because you cannot move into education unless those foundational knowledge are in place. So equally important is early mathematics as well. So it's not a binary choice. So you can have early reading and early mathematics that are, that you can address all at the same time. But what is impossible though is to move through the different curriculum subjects without ensuring that reading is there.
You talked about budgets and how important it is here in the UK and how it is used for a purpose. How then can the budget in the Philippines work to the favor of a curriculum that you are proposing to design?
Yeah, well, I think the budget that the Department of Education is more than enough to actually have a national rollout of the proposal that I am proposing to them. The thing with the education problem in the Philippines, when you look at the EDUCOM report, it is such a deep learning crisis. No, it's quite systemic. So you cannot just blame the teachers for the problem. So it is actually, the teachers can only be as good as the curriculum. It can only be as good as the delivery of that curriculum, and it can only be as good as the resources within the curriculum. And I have looked at the proposal in detail, and I think the Philippines can more than afford to have such a funding. But what you need is a political will for it to happen.
And also support from the local community. I know that you've had a very difficult time pushing proposals before your MBE.
Yes.
Now they seem to be listening?
They are listening.
What are you getting?
I think they are listening. They are even the undersecretaries that I spoke to just last Monday say it's an attractive proposal. That's how they describe the proposal that I've given them, and I think they're willing to support the program. I think that what they're trying to navigate though through the existing programs that they already have, and that's understandable because you don't want to have so many programs. But I just want to emphasize that reading should be at the heart of those programs, and it has to be with a sense of urgency.
And it's not that you're just the head here in the school. You do some inspection work that really gives you a lot of that credence that goes into your proposals. You have inspected a couple of schools here.
I have inspected close to 200 schools.
Wow. And what have you learned in that process then, on how we can come up to the standards of what you think is a good school?
Yes. Well, you have to look at the quality of education, and one of the things that is integral to the quality of education are those strong foundations, the foundational knowledge, the investments of leaders to make sure that the youngest pupils are getting the best education that they deserve. Alongside that is ensuring that the disadvantaged pupils, the most vulnerable of our pupils, are also supported. And I'm pretty sure that in the Philippines, when you look at the discrepancy between what pupils are getting from private schools and what they're getting in public schools might be different. And that is probably not because of teachers, and that is because of some disparities in terms of resources and quality of provisions as well. So I think that's one of the key things as well. And during the inspection, we also saw the development of early reading and early mathematics in the school. It hasn't always been like this, but because we have that accountability regime, the schools are getting better and better at those early reading. Some schools, like my school, 95% of my pupils here in this specific school are reading at the age of 6. And in a lot of schools, 80% is not good enough. So we have schools that get it to 100%, get it to 90%. So the dedication and the commitment is there. But dedication and commitment alone is not sufficient. You have to have the right curriculum, you have to have the right training for teachers, you have to have the right resources for it as well, and the right monitoring to make sure that it's happening day in, day out.
The opportunity to make a change in the Philippines has now surfaced with your proposals now being listened to. We are reminded that a lot of teachers have left the country because they wanted to find better paying school jobs. How have you reconciled your support as an OFW to your family back home with the fact that the nation needs you back in the Philippines?
Yes, and that's why I'm here. What I have done in this country is I have skilled myself up. I have made maximum advantage of the professional development that this country has actually afforded me. If I were in the Philippines, I might not be able in a position to actually provide this kind of support to the education of the pupils in the country. That's why I'm trying to give back. And I think, leaving the country alone is not, I think it's not a disadvantage in itself. Because I was able to demonstrate that by leaving the Philippines, I was able to skill myself up so that now I'm not only be able to, for example, if I stay there, I'll probably be helping my public barangay school or my elementary school, but now I'm in a position to help the wider community of learners in the Philippines. And that can only be a good thing, right?
Do you ever think of going back for good?
Maybe for holidays. Yeah, my children are here. So I have 3 children and they're here and they're rooted here. But I love the Philippines. There's no two ways about it.
All the best in the investiture. It's happening in a couple of months, right?
Yes. I'm just waiting for the dates. My understanding is that I'm going to be given 2 choices of venues. So it's going to be at the throne room at the Buckingham Palace or at the Grand Hall at Windsor Castle.
And what have you chosen?
I'll definitely going to our Buckingham Palace. It's just next door.
My conversation with Edison David, MBE in London. And that is it for Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. Catch us again tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Kapatid, we are One News, all sides, all the time. Have a great day ahead.